Greetings, everyone. We were just coming on and checking out your questions and trying to sort our way through all of it. So it's lovely to see so many familiar faces. Hi, Tarot by Lupo, Susan, Adele. So lovely to see all of you. So, Susan, we love the depth and perspective of your questions. You do have several questions there. So if you could maybe just pick one of those to get us started, just choose one question very specifically. We'll look at that. And in the meantime, we're going to go to a very simple, straightforward question by Adele that is about eating meat. So I'm going to put it up here on the screen. Does eating meat affect our spiritual evolution? Does it create blockages?
Oh, that was very interesting.
What happened?
I just laid the sun card down and it was like,
ooh,
shut all the other cards off. I was like, whoa, okay, relax.
So, yeah, good question. As Crystal's shuffling, she's clearing the cards. So we're getting a good fresh start on this really significant question. And what I know about what I've gathered over the years about this is we know that there are different, let's just say, densities of frequency. It's not necessarily about right and wrong or good and bad. It's about when we ingest, especially like the flesh of animals, we're ingesting more of body karma, that frequency of body karma. It's not a bad thing. It's just a denser, more grounded, earth-based kind of concentration of energy. And it has a lot of karma attached to it. But let's not kid ourselves. All forms of supplementation in our physical realm involve some sort of death. They involve a karmic energy. So I was a vegetarian for a lot of years. I raised Crystal as a vegetarian. We returned to eating meat just over a decade ago, like maybe 15 years ago. We went on a whole journey with, exploring that in different ways. And we find ourselves right now just sort of naturally gravitating back to less meat. And of course, always really looking for the very, very best quality of meat that we can access, So, and I've heard a lot of different impressions about this exact question. I feel like the jury is still out on this. I don't feel like we know exactly. But I think it's interesting to consider, there you go, my love. It's interesting to consider that so many different spiritual traditions require fasting from meat as part of a cleansing, ceremonial, rite of passage kind of thing.
It's so interesting to be looking at this right now with so much of this whole, next level of carnivore diet coming in, people that are really stepping on this, like particularly men and stuff like that are stepping onto this, like just eating as much meat as possible. It's so interesting to be contemplating all of it while there's all of these different reasons for ingesting in the way that we do right now. Look at that.
Okay, let's put it in a bigger screen.
Let's put it big.
There we go. What do you make of that?
Well, okay. Does eating meat affect our spiritual evolution? I'd say so. I mean, it's not about, what I make of it is it's actually not about the meat as much as the entire process of how we raise, harvest, gather, and then ingest the meat. There's so much heartbreak, disconnect, destruction that comes from the industry of all of it, and all of the substances that are interwoven when we ingest, like what's actually in our meat. that I would say is more affecting the absolute heartache of all of it, and the low frequency of how meat is um, raised and then killed, and then also what goes into the meat is way more the issue with our spirituality and our journey than the meat itself. And so we're actually being asked to look bigger than just meat and go into our own sovereign connection with the animals, with the medicine that it would bring us, and how to have more spiritual and emotional connection to that which we ingest in general, but meat particularly, because this is an animal, this is a
Yeah.
being.
Well, and look at this, because this is like basically us, and it's the heartbreak card. And it's also, I mean, we think about, they say meat is hard for cardiovascular. It's hard on our to like process the meat, puts a lot of certain types of fats into our bloodstream that's hard for our heart. So it's just this interesting, like it's something about the suffering, like Crystal's saying, is something about it's very spiritually connected to a lot of suffering. And when we take in the suffering, we literally take it to heart. We literally like take it into ourselves, and it adds to our own suffering. It adds to our own level of trauma and grief. And it's just sort of commiserates with that lower frequency of trauma. So I feel like I agree with Crystal. She's basically saying it's all the unconscious way that we're going about it is the real limitation in terms of the effect it has on our spiritual development. Yeah. Very, very beautiful question. I feel like there's a lot more to this. I also feel, when I look at this star card, to me, it reminds me of wisdom, and it reminds me of like spiritual cycles. So I feel as though, even for example, the time of the year that we eat meat, the time, like the way we go about it, that it's just kind of like very base, just got to get my square meal in for the day. It's not about like, I'm seeing here that potentially wiser, older, more ancient parts of us that are wiser in certain ways, they acknowledged that it was very significant. Like Crystal saying, when you ate meat, it was like you were communing with the souls of that species, and that you would do it almost ritually and seasonally. Like it would be very specific. It would be prescribed to a specific time of the year in a specific way that you went about it. It wasn't just go out to the grocery store and get your packaged meat and bring it home and eat it 5 days a week. So again, getting a feeling that it is a big question.
Yeah. We've really been, I think, gone to a certain place with it that has been parameter building for us. And now we can go from having that vantage point into each of us discovering our own journeys with it, and the wisdom behind ingesting it, and the wisdom also in how much emotional connection we have to tuning into our bodies. What happens to us when we ingest it? How do we feel spiritually? How do we feel, as we eat it? How does that feel? Are we just doing that because it's the thing that we think that we're supposed to do to get protein and be this and be that and do this and do that? Like it's
like reducing it to this very materialistic kind of low frequency run-of-the-mill activity. Like eating is a spiritual communion with source on all these different, like we're literally communing with the souls and the energy frequency of whatever that creature is that we're consuming. So yeah, great question. Beautiful. Really great opening to our conversation.
We are in contemplation of this as well.
Yeah. Now I'm going to Kim and then back to Susan if she has her first question. But the next
Susan,
one,
if you just want to break that first question down into like what is like one specific about it that stands out to you the most, and we can kind of work from there as in terms of a place to start.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Kim B is saying something that I've been actually thinking about this the last couple of weeks. Kim, how interesting.
Yes.
Have they changed older movies that are now being played to more disclosure? I've noticed some aren't the same. LOL. Now, what is the name of that phenomena?
Mandela effect?
Yeah, Mandela effect. That's it. Where we literally have timeline jumps and we can all attest to this. There's ways for all of us where we're like, that's not, when I read that book, that part was not in there, or this part was in there and it's no longer in there. When I watched that movie, I swear it was this and this and this that happened, and it's not there anymore, or new things are there. So I think we're opening up to a little bit of a question on the Mandela effect, if that's okay, Kim, but specifically we can look at how that relates to disclosure.
Yeah, I watched some older movies recently that I haven't seen in like years. And I don't have the memory to remember how different they are because I haven't seen them. Like I watched Cocktail recently and I haven't seen it in forever. But watching it, I was like, whoa, there is so much programming in this. It's like I had no clue. I'm going back and just like,
Yeah.
And maybe that's just because I'm a different person now and I am able to see those things more. Who knows? It could have been there the whole time. Or yeah, maybe there is more disclosure that comes out over time.
I've been noticing it with musical lyrics. I've been watching some, documentaries on different bands and different artists, and going back over these lyrics that have jingled around in my head for a long time. In fact, I talked about that on my live forecast this week. It's like that. And then I go back and I read these lyrics and I actually see what they're saying, and I'm like, oh my God, I've been singing this. It's like dark magic. It's really yucky. I don't like the fact that I've been singing this, and that I'll sometimes wake up with one of these songs in my head and I'm like, gross, get out of there. I don't want this. Like, I guess what I'm sensing, just my first insight, you're right. There's definitely a phenomena happening, and I'm not sure how much of it is that we're just seeing with new eyes, or how much of it is that is actually there is an effort to change, like that these are being reproduced, or like more stuff is coming out. Yeah.
Okay.
So Kim is saying, or I wonder, because they're digital, did they switch for this time? Yeah. So, huh. Uh-huh.
What do you make, Mama?
I say this is a massive detox, and I think I'm going to risk a little bit and say there might be some tampering, because this guy is like, he's mad. He's on a mission. He's like, okay, I'm going to make this really out. I'm really going to out this. I'm really going to make it obvious. We've got the fool here who just goes, yeah, let's just take a leap, go for it. The Queen of Wands is very dynamo, very but she's also the arts. She represents, out of all the tarot, the Queen of Wands represents the arts. So there's something about arts and entertainment that's been completely programmed. And I think what we're doing is we're literally opening our eyes, because once you know something, you can't unknow it, right? Like once you really understand something or understand something, everything is going to change after that. So are we actually watching different things, listening to different music, reading different books, or are we literally opened up, our eyes are open and we see it all. I would sort of with these cards, I would go that it's us. Our eyes are open and we're seeing it
Yeah.
differently.
That's how it felt too. I wonder about this Two of Cups, though. I find that quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's so much, and we kind of were having this conversation this morning. It's so much about the they. Have they changed older movies? And I kind of feel like the they is also like a part of us that's working with us. It's like working with us, working against us, but it's like the they that is there is also like it's a part of the whole process of this whole experience that we're here to go through. And so, yeah, as they let out more, we also wake up more. And the more that we wake up, the more they can let out. And like, who's to say what happens first and how it all happens?
Yeah, I wonder if, like, I agree with Crystal. I wonder if the they is more like other timeline parts of ourselves that are like our future selves that are revealing more to us now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it is like some team out there in IT land that are all sitting together going, let's re-release this and put new information in it. I wonder if it is more of a energetic interdimensional timeline activations where certain, it's almost like they're saying, like we have those stories about how when the Europeans first landed on the shores of North America, I mean, I don't even know if this is true, but this is a mythology, right? That some of the indigenous people couldn't see the boats because they actually didn't have, they couldn't register what that would be. There was no, so the psyche can't conceive of it and you can't actually see it until you have a reference point for it in your worldview. So I think there's something of that going on here where like literally some people are not experiencing things and other people are. And we certainly see that with the mass consciousness around being awake. We're like, how can you not see this? It's everywhere. And they're just going like, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? And we're like,
oh, I've experienced those conversations with people in my chair because I'll say some things and they're like, what? Like, no, I don't see that. And I'm like, it's everywhere. And they're like, no, I don't see that. I'm like, wow, personal algorithms. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And I do see, like looking at this burnout card here, I feel like if we got all of that all at once, that it would be energetically just like too much for us right now. We're already so burdened with so much information and so much noise, energetic noise coming at us that I feel like if they us gave it to us way back all at once, it would have been so way too much on our nervous system. Look how much it is on our nervous system right now.
Truly. So
right?
This sort of like drip feed of like a little more opening, a little more awakening, a little more awakening. We are definitely hitting this critical point though.
Yeah.
And I think that this Two of Cups is about like we're balanced in our heart brain connection now. So we're not just observing with our brain, we're observing with our hearts as well. And that lets us perceive differently. And I think what's starting to shock and startle us, like I got really upset when I started like looking and I'm like, why have I never looked at these lyrics before? Like,
yeah.
And then I'm going, I swear to God, they weren't like that when I used to sing them. But then I really think about it and I'm like, I don't think I even paid attention. I think I just assumed that it said something else. Oh, there's this.
Because the feeling of the song felt good.
Yeah. So there's a really funny story about this. I read, it was an article in a magazine like decades ago that I read, and I used to just laugh so hard when I read it. And it was basically where they took something like the Pledge of Allegiance in the US or whatever, and then they had children telling what they heard. And it's absolutely hysterical. If you can find this article, you'll just crease with laughter because it's basically kids hearing in like Bible verses and in hymns and in like songs on the radio, the Pledge of Allegiance, they hear something completely different and they actually think that it is like real, right? They think like that's their reality. I have a story from my childhood about this because there was a song that was popular this in Canada. This land is made for you and me, from Vancouver Island to the Alberta Highlands. You know the song, but you Canadians know the song. Anyway, it was a big hit back in the time when I was growing up, and we all sort of sang along and knew the words. It was a Canadian song, right? And so anyway, we went a couple of years. I was really young. At some point we were on a trip, and then a couple of years later we went back to the same place, and I was saying to my mom, we're going to the Baloney Valley. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I remember, this is the Baloney Valley. We're gonna go, there's baloney down there. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know. And then I said, we were going on, and I was like, I saw baloney. So you point down. So in the song, it says, I saw below me the ancient valley or something like that. And I thought it said I saw baloney. So I thought there was baloney down there. This is how, in a way, it's absolutely adorable how we adapt our reality to our own perspectives of what's important. And so what are we seeing? Are we seeing baloney? Yeah, it feels like we're seeing a lot of baloney in the movies, in the music. We're like, whoa, I thought this was something else, but it's not. So have that thought about that. And I'm sure you all have stories from your own childhood or your children where they perceive words and lyrics and things like that totally differently. And I think that's partially what we're looking at here. Any thoughts on that, Crystal?
So many thoughts on that. So many thoughts on that. Well, Susan hasn't gotten back to us.
Oh, she's right here. Yeah, I think there's a specific DNA, got the name, that certain people have, and that those are birthed and guided to travel to specific places to get charged. So that's a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go to that now.
Here we go.
Yeah. Thanks for your question, Kim. That was awesome.
Thanks, Kim. Hello, Linda. Hello, Ricky. And thank you for always being here. We are so grateful. You all make this possible. Rock and roll.
Rock and roll with new lyrics.
Rock and roll with new lyrics.
And funny enough, I talked about this in my forecast on the Beyond Mystic channel. When I do my Saturday live forecast for the week, I actually saw this. I was like, oh, we're going to be really hearing and seeing so much like real evidence of what we've been just kind of programmed along with and not even noticing that we're just singing along with all this stuff. Go ahead, my love.
I'm not sure that I really understand the question.
Okay, so it sounds like what she's saying is there's a specific DNA, and the name of it is Selene NG. Certain people have it, and that those that have it are guided to travel to places to get charged. Okay, so there we go. That's it.
Okay.
So is this true? Is there a specific DNA that has this name? And some people have it and some people don't. And it is inviting them to go to places and receive downloads, maybe. Okay.
Okay.
We're both staring at it. Can you feel the psychic wheels turning here? We can feel it.
Well, I feel like there's definitely a stirring up of DNA composition. Um, certain people having it. I mean,
Go for it. Say it. Say what you want to say.
I'm not sure. I feel like with this, the Wheel of Fortune, I feel like if there is certain people that have more concentration of this specific type of DNA, would be probably things like what I see in here would be probably things like our um, philosophers, the mystics, people that have are gifted certain abilities, and that's kind of like it's very, we just never know when we're going to step into that, or like who might that be.
See, now I have a perspective with
Thank
this
you.
card, this Wheel of Fortune card.
Tell us.
Like on some level, it feels like just a luck of the draw, or, you're saying, well, they came from a particular star ancestry and therefore they have this and others do not. Interesting, the Five of Pentacles is a lot about exclusion. And I don't know, like it might start off feeling like some people are special and others are excluded from that. But I think if anything, I'm almost getting that it's more of a burden in a way. Like it's not necessarily something you would want to sign up for. And I think that it's part of an initiation. So I don't believe that it just happens randomly and that some people are like lucky or blessed. And is it actually lucky? Because there's often a lot of really deep, potent, transformative challenge and potential suffering that goes along with the path of a mystic. And as we evolve into higher consciousness, it's a path with work. And that's what I'm getting here, is that I believe that what allows for that some people show up and just have these gifts automatically is they've had lifetimes where they've developed it. And maybe their DNA has adapted because of the spiritual development that they've undertaken. I don't know that they just got gifted this from an elite birthplace. I think that elitism, some of us have it and some of us don't, is part of what we're struggling to overcome. Is that, the ones that have true power got there the hard way. They worked for it over lifetimes. And if you look at all the spiritual traditions of the world, they talk about that. The great masters had great suffering to get to their mastership, and it over lifetimes. So it's beautiful to acknowledge that so many more of us are getting. It's sort of like the 100th monkey effect, right? The 100th, there's to a point, and then we get to a point where the ego gets annihilated. It's like, we're all going through a big collective rite of passage right now, suffering, going through our trauma, working on releasing our trauma. Look at this, 2 10s, like a lot of coming to the close of that old cycle. And those of us that have more of that, you could call it DNA markers, it might show up as a DNA marker, but that could just be the residue of the work we've done in other lives, right? So it's more of like, it is a responsibility, and it comes with a lot of hard work. It's not necessarily the easy, fun path. But I think the fact that we're even talking about this, the fact that we're even having this conversation, and that this is up for discussion is like, woohoo. It's just sort of like the little page of wands is like, let's explore.
Yeah, that's definitely how I feel about, like, I so agree with all that Mom was saying. And then where's some of that medicine for us in all of this? Because we're gonna, be it feels like a lot of us are coming to these places where we are unlocking maybe even these parts of our DNA that are that DNA. And um, in order for us to not get too stuck in what it takes to unlock that, to some of the medicine in the surrender in it is like not getting too attached to the story that we have to walk through, the storms that we have to go through in order to get ourselves to these places of activation and remembering, um, that there is gentleness and a curiosity, and an open sort of pleasureful playfulness in amongst all of it that will support us in not getting too stuck in the elitism, perfectionism of it all, and what may be the beginning of this DNA waking up in us.
Ooh, like that we all maybe have it latent, and some of it shows up more because we've like literally tuned
Mhm,
into it.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah, that's
mhm.
so fascinating. So fascinating. Isn't she amazing?
Isn't she amazing?
Just a reminder that if you would like to book an intuitive reading or a coaching session, Conscious Evolver coaching session with Crystal, there's going to be a link below in the
Oh, nice.
replay of this, and you can go online and book with her. So, because she's amazing. I mean, the insights that are
Everyone
exchanged
is
with
amazing. We're just working
it's
on all of this together,
true.
and that's what I love to do is work on all of this with you, because I learn something as I am in support as well always. So it's just such a blessing and an honor.
Suzanne,
Thank
thank you.
you.
I feel really good with that answer.
Mm.
Thank you. We feel good with it too. And
Mhm.
this is a work in progress, as Crystal's saying. Like I feel like a lot of times what I've noticed in my spiritual walk, I used to be a lot more like, once I mean, I'm a Gemini, and Crystal could tell you it's just nonstop. It's nonstop. Like there's
It
always new,
is.
new stuff coming in, new. And I was explaining it to her earlier. I was like, it's kind of like a large council, and you just add more. You don't really often get rid of things. It's sort of like you just sort of adjust them, and the whole thing adjusts. But this energy, what I've noticed is that I'm really delighted with the journey of inquiry and exploration. And I think one of the most important things, even going forward with all our new Earth models and new America and all of that, is to not just get fixated on one. It's kind of like as we evolve and grow very rapidly right now, if we just really dig in like this to one narrative and one perspective, it's often that as we grow, we add to that. It's not that one is no longer true. It's just, it's not enough information. We want the
Mm.
next bigger picture. We want to zoom out a little higher and get, okay, now we got that little piece, but now it makes us want more. It makes us, and I feel like probably the biggest part of this answer to me is, okay, regardless of where it came from, the ability to open up, psychically, the ability to have an influence and an impact in sacred sites, in restoring harmony in landscapes. I'm just in the process of launching my dowsing level 2 course on Beyond Mystic. And in that course, I'm going to be covering all about how to work in landscapes, in homes, even in our bodies, to restore the harmony and the balance and the frequency.
Mm.
We can influence that. So when you're talking, Susan, about going to sacred sites and being drawn there to do some kind of work, to me, that's the main focus. It's not even so much about where did we get this ability, because what I hear in your question is Is it okay for me to use this skill? Did it come from a good place?
Mhm.
And I feel like if your intention is good, don't worry about where it came from.
Mm.
Like, explore. This little guy, he's like, the proof is in the pudding. If you are going to these sites and you feel psychically attuned and getting information and working in a beneficial way to heal and harmonize, it's great. Like, and you'll be shown messages, affirmations from spirit that what you're doing is having a good impact. You'll start to get feedback. And I just don't really ask too many questions about where is it coming from. I just trust that there's a purpose for it and it feels good to be of service.
I speaking of trusting where it's coming from, while we were talking, I had this like image of like a balloon, like like a helium balloon that gets all blown up with air, and if we don't tie a string to it, it'll just like float away. And I could see it just being like out, letting out all its air and flying off into the sky. And then I was thinking about like a hot air balloon and how it needs to have like a certain amount of like sandbags that are attached to it, and like a certain balance of all of this energy to bring it up. But in order to allow it to float, so it doesn't just like float off into the ethers, you have to have this balance of like grounding force. And so it feels like a lot of these processes and experiences that we go through as we awaken and gather this knowledge and learn all of these things, it's like, why do we keep going through like these really hard experiences and perfect storms and things that make us question ourselves and initiations? And it's like, that's like the perfect equation of that string that connects us, and the
Sandbags
that stop us from just floating off into light, because there's a purpose for being here.
Well, and the purpose about like, what I hear, Susan, is you got a reason for asking this question, which is about how can I help? How can maybe I'm tuned in, or I know people that are tuned in, and what can we do to bring healing and restore harmony in the material realm? Because we're here for a reason, as Crystal's saying, right? So I love that like I said, I think the greatest thing of all here is that we get to talk about this. Like, that nobody says, I know the exact right answer. It's just giving more pieces of the perspective to build a bigger puzzle of awareness, right? And like I was saying about the Gemini thing, nothing is really useless information. It's just, let's not stop asking questions. We can land at narratives that feel really comforting for a while. And over my lifetime, I've had lots of those, and they're not irrelevant now. They've just been metabolized into a bigger learning. Just like when a child is learning the basics of reading and writing or something, it's not like you go back to your grade 1 reader and go, well, this doesn't even make sense. It's gibberish. You can still read it and it makes sense. But now you're reading phenomenal works of literary mastery. And, it's like you've moved along to be able to experience greater and greater and greater narratives. So it's not that the other ones are irrelevant. They just are, we kind of outgrow them, I think. So.
Oh, thank you for agreeing with my hot air balloon analogy. I was like, where is this balloon coming from right now? I don't even understand, but there's always a reason for it to come through, and I agree. Being brought to places that we don't have control of for a higher purpose.
Yeah.
And that we should just let the air balloon lead the way. Yeah.
Totally, right?
Like, I will feed it the beautiful equation of the fire and the the air and the temperature and all of that it needs, and then we let it float and enjoy the view and notice what comes along. And Very, very interesting.
Totally
Love it,
interesting.
love it, love it.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, everyone.
Adele, I'm going to go back to you because I noticed you're still weighing in a little bit on the meat, and I think that we could go one more step with this question, because you're basically pointing out really appropriately that you're consuming meat that is 100% grass-fed and from a local farmer, and of course, we know that that makes a difference. So maybe we could pull some cards on,
I was looking at that
like,
too.
when we are making a sincere attempt to like reduce the suffering and come into a better relationship with the source of what we're consuming, what we're communing with, right? It's almost like, if you think about it, what do you want to commune with? Do you want to commune with like a chicken that's been caged its whole life and has its feet grown into the bottom of the cage? Is that what you want to like take that in? Guess what? You're going to walk out the door and go, oh God, I feel like I'm in a prison. I feel like you're, especially as we become more spiritually open, we feel the suffering that, like, you might not taste it when you're eating it, but you're going to somehow have that coming into your ethers and into your etheric body. And so what do you want to commune with? Do you want to commune with suffering, or do you want to commune with a great, beautiful life out on the grass-fed plains, you know, and a compassionate death? There's even instances where I've tasted meat where the rancher says they don't even go out and just randomly select an animal, that they actually, do you remember it was at a bison farmer, buffalo farm rancher or something, and they were saying that they actually go out to the herd and they say, you know, I've got an order and I would like one of you to offer yourself to be this, you know, to be shared with this family. And he said that they actually, one will select, the group will select at one, or one will come out and it will offer itself in that way. Like, I just think, to me, that is such a different reality. That is such a different experience of like the respect that goes into that. And then I have tasted, we had that story of your friend, remember your friend from years ago, your Métis friend, that was hunting, and he'd never had his hunting license before. He was in his 30s or something. He never had a hunting license before, but he got his hunting license and he felt so conflicted about taking the life of an animal, but he wanted to go about it in the most beautiful way and with honor and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he went out the whole hunting season, didn't see a thing. And he kind of was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just not meant to hunt, you know? And the last day, I think it was the last day of hunting season, and he had this kind of area of his garden where it was almost like a little bit of a spiritual epicenter. And he looked out the window, remember he said, and there was like this great big stag with a full rack of antlers standing there on, and it was like, and he was like, what? Oh my God. Like, he was so intimidated and just blown open. Like, he said he was just holding the gun and literally shaking with like the power of it. And it just looked at him, was like, I'm here. Are you going to do this or what? And it was like, and then he did such a powerful way that he worked with the body and you know, butchered it and packaged it and then dispersed that amongst his closest friends. And we ate some of that meat, and it was like nothing I've ever tasted before. It was like eating the frequency of a very high spiritual energy. So I feel like, absolutely, Adele, I would like you to pull some cards on this too.
100%. And I'm going to go up to Marzak asking about halal meat as well, being a more conscious way of the animals. So they kind of tie in.
Yeah, let's put that question up too.
Together.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to put some feeling into that? And I feel like for all of us, really baby steps. Again, the fact that we're talking about this is so beautiful. The fact that we share about this is so beautiful. And the more we can start with getting meat from our local farmers and doing our own prayers over it and speaking to the medicines of that animal that we're ingesting. I mean, who knows all the ways that we're supposed to be doing it as we go along, but I love that we're taking the little steps along the way to get back to these ancient practices. What do you think I should do for pulling on these, Mama Love?
Why don't we just do 3 cards?
Yeah.
And do we'll just ask about 100% grass-fed local, and actually let's do 100% grass-fed local on one side and halal on the other
That's
side.
what I was thinking.
Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah. Great minds feel alike.
Right. Whoa.
Same cards.
Oh, whoa.
Sorry. Okay, I'm just kidding. And then the halal.
Oh, whoa. I am so shocked.
Me too.
I'm actually freaked out. 2 9s. Okay, so ready for this?
We're gonna have to go big on this one here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, I feel like what we're being asked to do. Now, this is not just about, okay, everybody go out and buy halal meat. It's bigger than that. It's basically, the question is it good enough in a way to just say, I'm going to eat meat that's been locally
butchered and
sourced,
grass-fed.
locally grass-fed, locally,
Mhm.
you know, okay, the farmer isn't praying over it, but they're treating it with respect, and it's killed, you know, with a humanitarian focus or whatever.
And
Okay.
it maybe had a better life.
And it had a better life.
Yeah.
And so that's good enough kind of thing. And basically what's being shown here is maybe it has been, but that is changing. So we're being asked to go bigger here. We're being asked to return to some spiritual aspect of relating to the process of slaughter. Like, it's just not okay anymore is what I'm getting. This is big for us. We're going to be having some big conversations about this because, geez.
Here I am talking about baby steps, and it's just like, no, no more of that. I feel like to pull a couple more cards on each.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. And one front and one in the bottom of each. So there, yeah, and one there.
Oh, I can't see them. Okay, hold on a second,
Okay,
you guys.
we just moved there you go. Love it, love it. Okay. Oh.
Sirs.
I'm gonna remove the comments so that everybody can see the cards here. Mm-hmm. There we go.
Okay.
You can hear we're both a little bit shocked, right? Because we don't know what we're going to pull. And this is definitely like, this isn't just entertainment to us. Your questions are powerful. The fact that we're tuning in together as a group that really, really are genuinely intending to make good change in our lives, right? So it's not like we're just going to look at this and go, oh yeah, whatever. I'm going to disregard that. I mean, obviously, it doesn't mean we're going to change everything about our diet this very minute, but this is definitely a piece of information that I wasn't expecting.
Okay, I have something to say about this. And actually, it's so sweet that this is where it ended up going. Thank goodness, you know? And like Mom was saying, it's not enough to just do that. I feel like where we're being led and invited to is you actually need to go and get to know the farmers. Like, why are we even buying this meat from them? Yeah, it's good to support them and the projects, but if we're not actually going and becoming emotionally caring in some way for these animals that we're ingesting, working together in celebration with the farmers, like, and coming together, even like feasting there with them, or that if we're going to have, if we're going to eat this food, that we're doing it in celebration with each other. Like, there's something about coming back into the emotional aspects around it, because there is, our hearts are heavy about it. And there's a reason why this is all coming up for us right now, and our bodies are saying no, our spiritual beings are saying no, and the whole meat system is like toppling down. And look what comes out of it. The sun comes out of it. Like, where this is pushing us to, I think, really so beautiful.
Amazing. Yeah,
So
I am
beautiful.
so encouraged that this is basically more information, and the advice for us is
Yeah.
to, yeah. So it's not about shame on you. That's not a good enough effort. It's about just don't stop there. Go
Mhm.
further is what Crystal's saying. Like, keep going. Get emotionally connected to. Can you imagine even better than just grass-fed beef that's been humanitarian slaughtered? Can you imagine that we literally, like, yeah, that we, like Crystal saying, that we actually get more involved in the process, and that we actually, um, we bring those of us that know about clearly their spiritual tradition, and I want to talk about this side.
Next
So
level.
those of us that are aware of this, we can bring that over here. We can add that to before we consume the meat. Obviously,
Mhm.
we can bless it, we can
Mhm.
clear it, we can pray over it. We can, as Crystal said, it becomes something of a celebration. So it's not something that we just consume every day. It's saved for these very special things. All of that is over there. This is fascinating, because this, what I'm getting with this, these three major arcana down here,
Huge.
is that, I see each of the Western religions as like, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, each of them have strengths. They each have like strong aspects, and they each have also weaknesses, right? So they've got like areas where they excel, and they've kept that part of the spiritual mystical tradition alive. And there's other areas where they've kind of lost the plot a bit, right? All three of those major religions. Well, what I'm getting with Islam is that it has kept the door open. It has kept the sacredness of the act of ritual slaughter alive. Like, it's held that. It's one of the only places where you could literally still go into your grocery store and buy that meat. So I'm just so grateful that some tradition on this planet has worked hard to keep this, not let this die. Look at that. It's like almost gone. And so to me, I want to be more curious about, what do they do?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean? What does halal mean? And like, I know that it has to do with certain prayers and incantations and methods to work with the meat, and all of that. But I want to know more about this now, because what it looks like to me, again, it's not the final solution, but it's pretty. I think if you put these two together, the innocence of our bodies and our hearts that are saying, I don't want to just consume this unconsciously anymore. I want it to be more meaningful. I want to have more of a connection with the sources of these. And I want to keep asking questions and go further with it. And then combine that with, and guess what? Here's a tradition that's been doing this and hasn't stopped. So what I am sensing with this, and what the bit of esoteric study I've done around the consumption of meat is, it used to be all of our traditions treated it this way. Christianity treated it this way. Judaism treated it. I mean, you still see with Judaism, aspects of like things aren't kosher, right? Christianity is one of the ones that has lost the plot the most with the way that we treat food, right? So, and the way we treat our consumption, especially of taking the lives of other creatures. So I feel like we're being invited to get back in touch with it. We're so grateful that there's still some of this tradition that we can refer back to. And, maybe we don't like, obviously, these prayers are done that are all connected to the religion of Islam. And it's like, I want to know what those words mean, right? Like, let's look at what are they actually saying?
Yeah.
And then how can we add that in and bring the honor of this back?
I wonder, right, if it's about like putting your wishes into your food. Like it's so very interesting.
Well,
Like as you say, what are they saying?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a deep dive about that to find out more about this. Because it's, does it mean that I'm going to stop eating grass-fed local farm meat and just eat halal? Does it mean that I'm just going to go to grass-fed and ignore halal? What it means for me, how I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to work towards having more of a meaningful relational connection with my food sources, especially the animal products.
Yeah.
And I'm going to learn more about this particular type of religiously sanctioned way of working with the challenge of the responsibility, the ethics of taking a life. And I want to learn more about that. I'm going to study it, and I'll let you know.
Absolutely.
Might not study it this week. I'm pretty full of a lot of other things to accomplish, but it's going to be on my lookout list.
We are on many missions, trust us. And this is top the priority, absolutely. It's been coming in for us as well. So really beautiful way to wrap things up here.
Totally.
Thank you so much for those questions and everyone's wisdom coming through.
So lovely to share with all of you.
Always such a blessing. Me too, says Adele. Awesome. Awesome. Yes.
And Tarot by Lupo.
Please share with us your findings and your feelings around all of it. We look forward to diving deeper as we go along.
Totally.
Yes.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes.
Have a beautiful week, everybody. Bring your questions next week. We look forward to sharing more with you.
Thank you so much for all of your gratitude. We feel the same way. Beautiful.
Blessings, everybody.
Yes.
Bye for now. Have a lovely week.